Yes, I bought the book, and yes, it gives us lore. So I bought it day one, and have combed through it to give the definitive guide on everything this book has to offer. From confirmations, references, new lore notes, and even new characters. Though before we begin, I need to start off with something right away. This book for the most part is 1/3 a walkthrough for the first 2 chapters, and half information we already have, save for a few things. The thing that makes this book noteworthy is the note left behind by an unnamed biologist who worked at the company. Seeing as the book never gives them an official name, I'll be giving them one myself. So throughout this video, I'll be calling them Jared Note Guy. Mostly just Jared though. I'll be going through the book in sequential order, in which I'll only be going over things of interest, so without further ado, let's get started on the Poppy Playtime Orientation Notebook. Oh, and also, I'm sick, so if my voice sounds like an old sea hag, that's why. To start off, we begin the book with a note from Jared. Basically, we get some background. Jared received this book a few months ago, multiple years now working for Playtime Co. as a biologist, though they still don't understand why they were hired. Pretty quickly into the book, we get the usual Playtime Co. ominous rules. Most of them are the usual stuff. We watch everything you do and don't talk to anyone about anything, but the one noteworthy thing is the cleanliness section, where Jared writes, they can be very weird about this. Random inspection to make sure everyone's fingernails are clean, that kind of thing. Given that Jared is a biologist, my mind immediately went to this being a precaution to not contaminate DNA. According to Sophia Fritzscher, a science lab technician from the College of San Francisco, nails have DNA, and in forensic analysis, fingernail material can serve as an important source of DNA. However, extraction of DNA from nail clippings is harder than from other tissue sources and yields DNA with relatively high levels of contamination. That last part about contamination is pretty important, as with such extensive work as creating a biological creature out of orphan juice, you don't want to screw up the process at all, and doom your bigger body to a life of suffering and possible vengeance. Down in the Huggy section, the Wuggy range, the QA checklist has a few noteworthy things mentioned. Do the Velcro pads work? Are Huggy's eyes and mouth the correct distance apart? Are Huggy's arms and legs of equal length? Although it can't be confirmed, this could be in reference to the iconic Huggy bootleg plushies that have been around since chapter 1, with places all over making bootleg plushies with less than great quality. They also make another jab at bootleg plushies on page 28 on the Longlegs family section, where they claim that there was an incident in which they used the mommy mold with Daddy's colors and were forced to sell them to China under a different name, Lady Ice Spider. I tried to search for anything related to Lady Ice Spider before the book came out in case this was a reference to another real bootleg, but this doesn't seem to be based on any real fake mommy toy by that name. As we go on throughout this book, you'll notice this sort of slate-colored blood on various pages. So far, I'm not aware of the exact pattern with these, however, it's especially weird to me because the toys bleed red blood, just like a person would. There's also a drip of ink on the first page, which I initially thought this was, but that's very clearly blue, not gray. It can't be the ink of Jared either, seeing as all of the writings are black, so what is this? Speaking of, there's especially a large amount of blood on the catnap page, for reasons I think we both know. On the smiling critter pages, we also get a few notes from Jared about what he thinks about them. Is it just me, or is the leader always the most boring one? He doesn't get to have a specialty, he's just the main guy. He knows stuff, but people don't want to hear it. Yeah, I can relate to that. With friends like Catnap, I'm surprised he found anything else to be afraid of. The company sank so much money into this thing. They couldn't admit it failed. But there's a lot going on with the smiling critters on the experimental side too. We also get pages on some of the other random characters in the series. Now, I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time we've heard of Boxy Boo getting discontinued. However, there's talk of bringing him back, so it doesn't seem like a recall as bad as Catnap's. Likely more of a fad that died down. Page 53 has something interesting. You see, in several parts of this, Jared covers up important stuff with sticky notes. In this case, it's what you may be asked in regards to the experiments. However, the way it's covered up, we can see part of the first line. I can definitely tell the bottom part of this line says De Omnisca Sinus, which means God is omniscient. However, I was able to take all the letters we can see and ask ChatGPT to fill in the blanks in hopes of getting the correct message, to which ChatGPT believes the message to be Contain etam pertua scientas sectu etu, to ambin de omnisca sinus, which roughly translates to containing also the eternal knowledge within the holy sanctuary, you, O divine, in every bosom. Sounds pretty prototypish to me. However, given the first part translated to God is omniscient, is referencing this place as a holy sanctuary, and this being written in the official handbook given to employees, this might actually suggest a second cult, possibly a cult regarding Leithier as a god. It could go either way, especially if you consider God's omniscient to be in reference to how the handbook keeps reminding us that they are watching everything. Continuing along in the Grabpack section, we hear about a yellow hand that is more specialized and will only be issued to employees who are judged to require it. Though believe it or not, this isn't actually a new hand. Going all the way to the end of the book, there's a quiz in which one of the questions is, what does the yellow Grabpack hand do? To which the answer is that it launches the user into the air. So either back then the purple hand was yellow, or the meta option where this book was written during prototype version of chapter 3 and it wasn't updated when they changed its color. On page 58, Jared notes this on a page talking about tours. There was a tour planned for Friday, June 19th, 1992. That got cancelled. No visitors allowed in at all that day. They said it was due to an emergency staff meeting or something like that. June 19th, 1992 is the date directly before the restricted disappearance video, where Huggy escaped and killed several security personnel before they could finally be brought back. There's something really weird about this though, as despite it saying it was due to an emergency meeting or something, he posts up the very report that details what happened on page 66 and 67. As for the book itself, there's a section on page 63 asking for people to join the securities retrieval team, which implies this orientation book was made after the incident with Huggy. Back to references though, in the make a friend room instructions section, Jared leaves a note pointing to the walkway part saying, I don't know how those walkways passed a safety inspection, which might be a reference to Raito's video delving into how many OSHA violations the Garten Abandoned series has in the first 3 chapters, which was docked many points for very similar walkways. Page 77 has some notes on the Poppy flower room. Something to note here is that even back then she was kind of caged up. Did she want to leave? A lot of the other tours were given a lot more range it seems, so why was she caged up even back then? It also basically confirms that Poppy is Elliot's daughter, mentioning how people talk about her like she's the company's child, and that Elliot must have wanted to visit Poppy a lot. Here's something new lore-wise. Remember Marcus Brickley? He's the guy from the Jacksepticeye cameo tape that was talking to Laith Pierre because he saw a creature with 1,000 legs and 50 feet long. However, during that tape he says,
Who have you told about this? Besides me, obviously.
Just you, sir. Obviously.
but Jared knows about the incident. Not only that, but in one note they say, but we think that's possibly what he saw. This tells us that Marcus lied to Laith about not telling anyone. Page 95, we get a memo to Human Resources about Rich, who we now know the full name of, Richard Lovitz. This whole section is in reference to the first tape with them, where they're complaining about the company, with this memo being the thing to demote them down to the rejection room. More importantly, ha! I told you! Oh, all you commenters in the video where I go over all the human characters who told me that, oh, Rich and Avery are the same person. No, they are not! Look at it! I win! Granted, you're still right about Stella 100% knowing about the experiments, but still, I win! Shooting ahead to page 104, we get this blueprint of Bunzo, which, if you look at the rightmost side, you can see that Bunzo's head has a human skull. There's also an arrow showing that it might allow you to grab onto the back of the larger model Bunzo with a Grabpack, likely the same thing the musical memory machine latches onto. There's also a voltage caution symbol down below, which may instead indicate either powering its back with the green hand or taking power from it. Page 113, we get a brand new child drawing with a brown-haired girl that reads, I don't like Catnap and his friends. I see him everywhere. I can't escape him. Although we have no precise way of knowing who this is, I personally believe this is from Marie Payne, the girl who suffered horrific nightmares about Catnap from the red smoke and would later become Mommy Longlegs. On the next page, we get some brand new documents. These ones going over experiment 1186, Bobby Bearhug, the first of the smiling critters to be created into a bigger body. Apparently it hadn't gone very well, as Bobby didn't seem to have any awareness of their surroundings, having failed to properly wire the cognitive cords of the brain. She also wasn't able to speak, seeming to form words and scream, but no sound coming out. After several hours, she attempted to stand and walk to the other side of the cell, but couldn't keep balance, spasming constantly. A few pages later, we reach the Playhouse section, which has a few interesting notes. Apparently, if an orphan has any toys made by other companies, they are to be removed immediately. Jared has an added note here that the kids are not allowed to ask what happened to their old toys ever. If they mention it, everyone pretends like the toy never existed. Barbie? There's no such thing. Ouch. As we go on, we get notes on sections like the train station, the feeding pit, Destroy a Toy, and the Porta Lounge, showing that this whole book and its notes almost certainly takes place during Project Playtime after the Hour of Joy. Hey, sorry, last second thing I'm popping in here. I just realized, so this takes place during Project Playtime, which is after the Hour of Joy, right? And yet they still are having orphans being brought in. Where are they going? Because Playcare's in, like, in the main facility, which is where the Hour of Joy was happening, and we know from the music video, that's where they're all chilling, right? Where are you putting, is there another orphanage? This is a pretty big discovery, and I thought I'd just slip it in. Page 137, we get the utmost confirmation in regards to Jared. There's a tape of the Boxy Boo experiments. Thankfully, I don't think I'm on it, but it shows they knew. They knew what the creatures were capable of. We all knew. He was there. So then why did he write that he still doesn't understand why they hired him at the start? He said himself that he got this booklet multiple years in the company. He's covering for himself. He's unreliable as a narrator. And we can say this for certain because he's contradicted himself before. Page 112, they mentioned they are very careful about not letting employees outside of play care talk to the orphans. And from that playhouse section, he seems to be aware of exactly what goes on in there too. Meaning anywhere where he pretends not to be aware of something, we should be skeptical of him. Even more so because of this last section of the book, the employee calendar. We get another thing suggesting that Jared worked directly in the orphanage as he was told to go say hi to the new orphans on February 1st. Even though again, only people who work in play care were allowed to even see them. He says he'll pretend to be sick that day, likely because he works with the experiments and knows what will eventually become of them. March 6th says they had scheduled lab for experiment 1467, though it's scratched out. The note below it seems to suggest that they got the number wrong, even if it's still 14 anything. That places it as the latest experiment we have, as the latest experiment numbers we have currently are 1222, Mommy Longlegs, and 1322, a currently unknown experiment mentioned in a VHS tape in Chapter 3, named Kevin. March 9th says Inspection Day at the park, which seems to suggest that the park we see in those posters is indeed at the facility, meaning the theory suggesting we'll be going to the theme park next may not be as far off as I thought. May 26th, we see data entry with Dr. Sawyer, which means that Jared directly works with Harley Sawyer, the man behind the Bigger Bodies initiative. Even more reason to believe he's not letting on to all of his involvement in these notes. Anyways, the calendar ends sometime in August, placing the version of the book that we have, with all the notes included, as August 1995. And with that, I believe that is everything. By the time I read through the whole thing, I think it's clear that Jared may have more involvement than he lets on, and that although he clearly does want to put an end to the experiments and doesn't believe they're good whatsoever, he's clearly worried about getting himself in legal trouble or putting himself in danger by coming out about what the company's doing. And judging by the bloodstains, I think it may just have been in vain too. Either they found his notes, or more likely, when he was planning to quit but convinced to stay, they were only convincing him for as long as they'd need to kill him off, so he couldn't tell anyone about what was going on with the company. Though there's still a lot of questions, most notably these slate bloodstains in the Latin text that Jared's note was hiding. But either way, what were your thoughts? Do you think we can trust Jared? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. Peace!